Hello, everyone. It's Tony, alcoholic. Going to continue page 39 with Fred, and hopefully this is part four of step one, and hopefully I can get it done in one take. If not, then maybe there'll be a part five. All right. So Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good. He has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it's Fred. And I have all these little qualities of Fred underlined. He's good, fine home, happily married, nice children, they're all going to school, successful. So as far as we can see, Fred is pretty much your average normal Joe, right? Everything's going well for him. To all appearances, he is stable and a well-balanced individual. Two more good qualities of Fred. But yet he is an alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recovery for the bad case of jitters. Now again, here, and I think Joe and Charlie mentions this. Fred is in the hospital not for his drinking but for jitters. So even in this first paragraph or two, we see that there's a little bit of a denial in his story, or the individual that he is, because um, like it said, he has everything going for him. He's on top of the world, has a happy life, happy wife, great kids. Um, kind of like I have a little note here, the Brady Bunch. Happy married, with the maid and nice white picket fence and the dog. But on the outside, he's everything's going good, but on the inside, he's an alcoholic. And the AA guys first got in contact with him in the hospital when he was there for, again, bad case of jitters, not alcoholism. It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerves. So here again, the denial part, right, of the disease, and Fred is not able to admit why he's there, and he's there for bad case of jitters or to rest his nerves, and of course I have the word self-diagnosis because that is what us alcoholics love to do. We love to self-diagnose ourselves. The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days, he was depressed about his condition. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so in spite of his character and standing. Again, so we see his ego, self-diagnosis, um, a little bit of embarrassment and self-assurance, and he felt that he can quit. Um, and here we see him just talking about himself, doing it alone. The eyes, right? I can do this. I got this. And goes on to say Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept the spiritual remedy for his problem. And I have, when we talk about spiritual remedy, we're basically talking about the three-letter word that a lot of people are afraid to say, and it's God, or higher power. So again, ego. He thinks he got this. He thinks he can cure himself, self-diagnose himself. Um, but here we see, Fred in the hospital trying to get better, but really refusing to do step one, right? And it's obvious we're in a 12-step program, and if you can't do step one, then really, you're not going to be able to do two, three, four, and so on. Um, we also call, or Joe and Charlie, um, also refer to Fred here as a high bottom drinker, right? Because Fred hasn't really lost anything, in his life up until really his his health is pretty much what he lost so far. Now when we had talked about Jim in the previous story, um, we saw that Jim and and even the jaywalker, right? Those are two examples of what we call low bottom drinkers because they lost everything, right? Jim lost his job. Jaywalker, kept getting hit by a car and breaking bones and lost his wife, his kids, and stuff like that. So, sometimes is when you're an alcoholic, it's sometimes it's easier, maybe more for others than you yourself, but at some point you come to realize of where, you realize that your life was really unmanageable and a lot of times it takes you to lose all those things that are most important to you, for you to realize that, hey, admit defeat, admit you need help, and take that step one. But it's even more difficult for, as they call it here, the high bomb drinkers who never lost anything and are always on the top of the world. So those are two key points to remember: high bottom, low bottom, because pretty much no matter what type of drinker you are, alcoholic or drug addict, we you have to find yourself in one of those two categories. You either are high or you either a low. Once you come with once you're able to kind of like come to terms with those, um, your recovery will begin to become a little easier. So going to say, we told him, and who's we? Bill and Bob, more than likely. We told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested and conceded that he had some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. So again, they told him about the disease, they told him their story, and he's starting, the kink in the armor, starting to get a little dented in his ego, but he's like, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit, maybe I have some of those symptoms, but I'm not like you guys yet. And I can still lick this problem again all by myself when it says himself. Okay, I program, doing everything by yourself. And here we see his ego is still running very high. But he was positive that his humiliating experience plus the knowledge he had acquired would keep him sober for the rest of his life. Would would fix it. Now, I have stuff on the line here, and self knowledge. We get that when we come into AA. We're hearing the stories, and so at some point we realize, yeah, we have a drinking problem, and yeah, things have gone pretty bad for us, and um, most of us have had those humiliating experiences in the past, and we're like, yeah, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to embarrass my wife, my kids, my family, my significant others, my husband and stuff like that. And we think a lot of that is good to keep us sustained. And in a sense, it kind of is, but it's only a small a small of a small amount of sustenance, that'll keep us going. We need the whole full program. And again, doing all this is just the eye. Like I had made reference to see page 24, see page 30. We talked about mental blank spots, and we talked about obsession of the mind. And obsession of the mind, or the mental blank spots, I should say, is where you do kind of forget all those humiliating experiences, and you end up drinking again. So the reason why one of the reasons why I go to the meetings, and I know a lot of people go to the meetings, is we hear the stories of other people's humiliating experiences retold over and over again. And by listening to those stories, we hope or that there should be some type of point where we can relate to those people's stories and see ourselves, or pretty much remember the dumb shit that we did. So that's like, utilizing the program, utilizing the fellowship, so that's one part of it. And yeah, the self knowledge and knowing that you have an issue, that's one part of it. But The big thing here is he this self-knowledge is you really just doing it by yourself, you're not doing it by anybody's help. And a key point to this is also I have here only moderate drinkers can do this, right? Only moderate drinkers can stop, because of a bad Saturday night, a bad Friday night of doing stupid stuff, but the real true alcoholic or addict, they can't, right? Um, so I have here also with the self, we see the word self-knowledge, self-will, that's using willpower, and willpower never works, right? Because um willpower, again, it says using your own power. And we need a higher power. We need God's power. We need the power of the fellowship. We need like the three powers, I call it. The program, the 12 steps, the fellowship, and the higher power to help us beat this and stay stopped. We heard no more of Fred for a while. One day we were told that we were back in the hospital. So here Fred is coming back for a second round. This time he was quite shaky. He soon indicated he was anxious to see us. So now Fred is really really shook it up, right? Now he's just like, oh, I want to see these guys again. He told the story he told is most in instructive. From here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all his other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless. So here is Fred, a smart guy, a good businessman. He had good judgment in everything else that he did in the world, in his business life, in his family life, except when he came drinking, right? So when he drank, he did stupid shit, right? So second trip to the hospital, he got drunk, even though he still, had the self-knowledge or this I got this. Um, and he still fell right back into the bottle. And then again, yeah, flat. He was never back. He was back nevertheless. So Bill and Bob, they told him about the allergy. They told him about the obsession of the drink. I told him about the whole mental blank spot. I told him the whole stuff about alcoholism, what it's all about. He talked about how they drank, and he thought that's all he needed. Like he knew what the problem was and how to fix it. Um, but again, like I said in the paragraph before, he this here he much less he believed himself in alcohol, but much less accepted a spiritual remedy for want to use spirituality to solve. Almost had it, but he didn't have all the pieces to the puzzle, all the parts that was needed in order to continue to stay sober. And that's why I said see page 24, page 30, because I believe that that's the reason why majority of people relapse. So I'm not going to go that much into it. Just go back to those pages and probably the first lesson that I did here, which I break down 24 and 30, pretty completely. So let me tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. I got this. I did not think this was going to happen to me again. I rather appreciated your idea about the subtle insanity which preceded the first drink, but I was confident it could not happen to me after what I had learned. So pretty much what I just said, right? He knew that the alcohol was an issue of the body and the mind. The mind tells us over and over, I think I think I got this, I can drink, I can drink, I can drink. But the body ensures us through the manifestation of the allergy that we can't drink. So, um, and and Bill uses the word insanity, or you know some type of word referring to the brain, the mental, a lot in this book. So whenever I see it, I kind of like underline it and point it out. Um, He says, from what I had learned, I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows. So yeah, I'm a little bit alcoholic, but I'm not like you guys. I'm better than you guys. All right. So again, we still talking about a little of his, ego was going on, a little self-denial. Um, most of you fellows that I had been usually successful in licking my other problems, and I would therefore be successful where you men failed. Again, big ego. I've always got it done. I've always taken care of myself. I've always succeeded. Even when I failed, I tried. I got back on a horse, and it always worked for me. Right. This is all the mentality that that Bill is. I'm sorry, that Fred is talking about, and I'm pretty sure we can all relate to this. I know I definitely can. And God here, he's very smart, he's very cocky. Again, I got this, I could do this alone, I'm better than you, all the stuff that I'm saying. Um, so again, I would basically, succeed where you guys failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident. Again, the worst self, just me, doing by myself. That it would be only a matter of exercising, again, my willpower and keeping on guard. Again, willpower never works because you're just doing it. You're just doing it by yourself. Um, um, and see, Fred tells us that he's at okay. Just reading some of my notes here. So in this frame of mind, I went about my business for a time. All was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks and began to wonder if I had not been making too hard of a simple matter. So his first round in the rehab or his hospital, the guys worked with him. He thought he had it all together. He thought he thought he had it all figured out. And again, he thought he got this, and he thought he was just, you know, hey, this is easy. These guys are just making too hard of this stuff, right? So again, his word, the ego, overconfidence, um, you know, and this is where we go back to page 30, right, of the big book where we talk about the obsession of the mind. The mind starts telling us, I think it can. We start thinking, hey, I can do this. I can be like everybody else. Look at that guy over there, he's drinking. Look at that gal over there, she's drinking. They're having a good time. And then you start to want those things. And I guess whatever humiliation that he went through, whatever happened to him the first time, wasn't strong enough, or he wasn't hurt enough, or he wasn't beat up enough, um, that that to cause him to want to not drink again. So so and he has some success, because it says here people offer him drinks probably, and he said no, no, I'm good. and and then here he comes. Then one day, and and we all had that one day, right? Or the but this happened, but this guy fell, but car accident, but the boss got into, fired me, or the my significant other, yelled at me, or you know dog the dog ate up my good pair of shoes. I stepped in dog shit. We all had that one day, that's going to happen. And this is why we need a strong program. So when that one day just occur, we can use the tools in our toolbox to keep us from going down that slippery slope. He says, one day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence. Nothing crazy about that, right? Because he's working. To a government. I had been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that day. Almost sounds like Jim the salesman, right? I had some talk with my boss about some concerns, and I went to the country, thinking that I can, whatever, get my head clear and maybe see a guy about selling a car. And I've been there before. I went into this diner, this restaurant. I've been there before. I knew it very well. I knew there was a bar. Last time it didn't bother me. I succeeded before, so you know a lot of times things are familiar with us, that we are familiar with, but sometimes the areas or the places where we will fall. Comfort the comfort will bring the misery. Um, so he's been out before. He succeeded. He felt that that he can continue to stay sober on his own, and physically I felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries, right? So like my sponsor would say, and they talk about this in the book. It's not a cloud in the sky, like a perfect clear day. And here he goes. I'm sorry. He goes, "There's no problems or worries. My business came off well. I was pleased, and my new partners would be too. It was the end of a perfect day, and not a cloud on the horizon." Right. So it's a famous line my sponsor used to talk about. Um, and like you hear people talk about like, "Oh, I'm on a pink cloud, things are going good," and I would always tell people, and I tell my sponsees, like, when things are going fucking really shitty, you need to go to a meeting. When things are going really good, then you really, really need to go to a meeting. Okay, because when things are going really good, sometimes like the devil is waiting in the shadows right there, to pounce on you because you got your guard down. You're sitting on the beach, got suntan lotion going. You got the waves crashing. Maybe you got the Caribbean music in the background, and then before you know it, the nice bartender is offering you free. Someone buys around and free shots on the house, and you're like, hey, why not? And let me celebrate about all my accomplishments, and then boom, you're back at it, and you're right where you started. So we always got to be on guard, and more importantly, we all have to be on guard with each other. We all have to do it together. And he says, I went to my hotel and leisurely dressed for dinner. And again, this is all staying, thinking, everything's going well, no big issues. He goes, as I cross, and here's the squiggly words, squiggly lines, italicized, because Bill's trying to stress a point here. He says, as I crossed the threshold for the dining room, the thought, and here's the insanity. All right. So when we start thinking is when we have a problem, right? We start doing all this creative thinking, and then this all the brainstorm comes. The thought came to my mind that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was all. And what's funny is, you know, a non-alcoholic could probably say, "Hey, I mean, I might have one drink with my dinner, or one cocktail with my dinner." But here, yeah, I have a couple, you know, and we all know what a couple is, right? A couple is not one. A couple is maybe like, 5 to 10, you know, or maybe 15 on on a good on a good Saturday night. So here's a crazy thought, right? A couple of cocktails with my dinner. All right, and I have here this is all insane thinking. That was all, and nothing more, right? Nothing more. There's nothing else left, right? Because you've already started on the spiral. I ordered a cocktail and my meal. Then I ordered another cocktail. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. So far, he's already trying to do the drinking experiment, right? Or control drinking. He had one drink with his meal, and then he had a second drink at after, or maybe before finishing his meal, right? So it's almost like, and I've heard this in meetings where we tell everybody, be careful, the first drink, the first drink, the first drink, and that's like drilled into our heads. And then when we do take that first drink, it's almost like we're waiting to see for the sky to fall, right? It's like it's almost we expect there to be an immediate drunkenness or sickness. And for all of us that have built up tolerance over the years, we all know that we can. Um, uh, it takes us multiple drinks to get hammered, but the problem is, when you haven't drank for a long time, your tolerance is low, to the fact where the effects are different. So it might still take you 3 or 4 or 5 drinks to really get pretty hammered, but the effects after that, I think, it's 10 times as worse. Uh, so so I ordered another cocktail. After that, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, um, it again, here's a more crazy thinking, right? It struck me that a highball, or I have here, or an eight ball for you old timers, for an eight ball or highball would be fine before going to bed. So I stepped into the bar and had one. So here he is already on 3 drinks, but he's spacing them out, right? He had dinner, he went for a walk, everything is going good. So he's playing with fires, he's experimenting, and each drink that goes by, nothing bad is happening to him. So again, that whole ego, the self confidence, you guys are making this too, no, too much of this. I got this, and then and so far his drinking experiment is working. And he says, but then I remember having several more that night and plenty the next morning. So then he, then he goes on to say that I had a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane, and this is the best part. So he goes from having all these drinks, um, and pretty much getting hammered, and then somehow it's kind of remembering being on a plane. I mean, you got to be pretty hammered to forget that you took a plane ride. So he had a shadowy recollection of being on an airplane, bound for New York, and of finding a friendly taxi cab um, driver at the landing field instead of my wife. So here we are. Here's this guy going to New York, and if you're from New York, there aren't too many friendly cab drivers. He's back in the days, and and like who loses his wife? So he comes off the plane, and was his wife like waiting for him, and instead of going right, he went left. Or maybe he didn't even call her, but there's a couple of blanks in the story where it just makes you curious. Um, you know, how can a guy miss his wife? So the driver escorted me about for several days, okay, not hours, not one day. So I mean, this must have been like the most friendliest New York City cab driver you can find. That stood with this guy for several days and escorted him around. And I could imagine what the cab fare was for that, right? He says he goes, I know little of where I went or what I said and did. Thinking in the hospital and unbearable mental and physical sufferings. So I love how a lot of Fred's stories left out of here. I mean, probably maybe didn't want to put in the book all the stupid things that he did, but I know pretty much. I know that when most of us go on tears, we at least remember some of the things. But maybe they were just too bad, too glorifying, or too embarrassing to want to put in a book. So I made it very, very very basic um about his story. But I would love to know where Fred went, and the story of getting drunk, getting off a plane, partying it up in New York for several days. It almost sounds like the plot of the movie Hangover. So maybe that's the movie writers. Maybe they got some of that idea from here, or maybe it's just basically what everybody does when they get drunk and go to Vegas and stuff like that. You spend a couple of days going crazy and doing stupid shit. So any case, so now Fred ends up in the hospital, and unbearable pain, physical suffering, and mental suffering, and now he's really really hit rock bottom, right? And now he's really 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 in bad shape. And he says here, as soon as I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over the evening in Washington. Not only had I been off guard, I had no fight whatsoever against the first string. This time, I had not thought of the consequences at all. Again, see page 24, see page 30. This is the exact reason why he had no fight. He didn't think of any of the consequences. He was off guard. It was a beautiful day. not a cloud in the sky, and his mind, the devil on one shoulder said no, 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 and then and the devil on the shoulder said hell yeah, and he told the one on the left side to shut up, and he just went for it, right? He had no fight whatsoever, and he he had it says I had been off guard, made no fight whatsoever, and against the first drink. So he had, and there's another part here. I don't think it's in this paragraph on the book. It talks about defenses, right? We're defenseless against the first. He was defenseless against the first drink. So if we look at it from a football analogy, you got your offense and your defense, right? So the best offense is to have a good defense, right? All those football analogies. So what helps you fight against these thoughts of the first drink? What's your defense against the first drink? It's very simple. You got your higher power is one, you got your fellowship is two, and you got the 12 steps is three, right? If you do all of those things, all of those three things, if you continue to have a good program where you're not doing it by yourself, where you have no ego or as little ego as possible, when you do stupid things, if if you show remorse and try to correct them as soon as possible, again, you come to meetings, you listen to stories, you tell your stories, you call people, this is all the AA stuff, all the AA program. We do it together. You do all this stuff together, and you'll find that you will be able to stay stopped. It's not going to be easy, but it's easier doing it together than doing it by yourself. He said here, I had commenced to drink as carelessly as though the cocktails were ginger ale. I now remember what my alcoholic friends had told me and how they prophesied, right? Almost like in the Bible, they prophesied that if I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come, I would drink again. Um, he goes, they had said that though I did raise a defense, is what I was talking about before, it would one day give way for some trivial reason by having a drink. We just well, just that did happen and more. For what I learned of alcoholism did not occur to me at all. So again, he's telling now how the guy said that everybody's saying that he would drink again if you didn't follow, get involved in the program, and that here he is remembering what the guys told him that he would drink again, if he was like true alcoholic, and and that again for some truer reason he would have a drink, and for him there was no truer reason because he's really just celebrating, right? So, well, that just had happened to me, and for what I had learned about alcohol, this didn't occur to me at all. I knew from that moment I had an alcoholic mind. I saw that willpower, like what I said before, willpower and self-knowledge. It's the I program. Willpower and self-knowledge would not help me in those strange mental blank spots. Okay, page 24, page 30, right? When you forget about all the stupid shit that you did in the past. I had never been able to understand people who said that a problem had them hopelessly defeated. I knew then it was a crushing blow. So here, and I have step one. So here, he finally kind of like is at step one, where he's starting to realize that his life is hopeless, his life is helpless, unmanageable, um, and that he couldn't do it, that he couldn't do it by himself. Who goes on to say the two of the men of Alcoholic Anonymous, probably Bill and Bob, right? Came to see me. They grinned, which means they laughed, which I didn't like so much. And they asked me if I had thought myself an alcoholic and if I was really licked this time. I've heard a lot of that in A too, being licked this time. A lot of times people come in here and they just not beat up enough. Like they haven't been they got 2 DWIs under their belt. Maybe they need to get 5. You know, they've gotten beat up 1 time. They need to get beat up 6 times. You know, they've gotten kicked out of the house. You know, maybe need to get kicked out a couple more times. You know, it's just like, we've done stupid shit, but sometimes it's like, when is it enough? You know, and it's enough when you say it's enough, and when you can finally admit that step one. But a lot of us need to go out there, experience more torture, get beat up more, get treated like shit more, and have more experiences to really feel that, to really understand that we are truly beat up and licked, and you know th- um, this time. So I had to concede both propositions. They piled on me a heap of evidence to the effect that an alcoholic mentality such as I had exhibited in Washington was a hopeless condition. They cited cases out of their own experience by the dozen. This process snuffed out the last flicker of convictions that I could do the job myself. So again, kind of the stuff that I was talking about before, he finally had to go out there and have another couple more bad experiences to realize, hey, I can't do this for myself. I need help. I need help of the AA program. And also realizing that finally he's in a hopeless condition. So once you realize that you are in that hopeless condition, and that you need help, you're almost at at step 2. When you are fully surrendering, yourself, and admitting that you need help, and who you need help from your higher power. So here he realized that his life was unmanageable, that he was powerless, and that he was truly hopeless. And once you have those first 2 steps um, fully completed or engulfed in your body, then you can start your recovery. And your recovery starts when you start doing the steps and going through the program. Um, and yet I have here, willpower, doing it alone does not work, right? We all have to do it. We all have to do it together. It goes, then the outline, the spiritual answer, right? Higher power, God, and a program of action. You see the word program of action? That's the 12 steps, right? So, you know, maybe they tried it to tell him before, and maybe he heard it. But once he really, really admitted that he was, truly beat up and licked this time, and his mind was kind of like, in that hopeless state, he was finally ready to listen. And now it's just like, give me everything you got. I'll do anything. I'll do anything that I got to do to stay sober, because everything else that I tried to do before didn't really work. So now they were able to really talk to him about the 12 steps program. It says here, which 100 of them had followed successfully. And they use the word 100 in the book before, because again, this AA has been around maybe 4 or 5 years. When this program was really when this book was written, I don't know where Fred falls in the time frame. Was it like, was AA guys going for 2 years, 3 years? How many members they had, but they always make reference like the first 100 members that they had. And these guys are going around and helping other people. So 100 of them had followed successfully. Though I had only been a nominal churchman, their proposals were not intellectually hard to uh to swallow. And again, it's funny, like now he's calling himself a nominal churchman, right? So now you see like the little bit of his ego, starting to deflate, because now he's not a big shot, just a little guy in the church. I know a little bit about God and this and that, but what they have to say is it's not hard to really understand, not hard to swallow. But the program of action, the 12 steps, though entirely sensible, was pretty drastic. So sorry, I take a pause for a second. Talking about program of action, how drastic. So you see something about a program of action So entirely sensible was pretty drastic. And again, we get that a lot from a lot of people. They say it's a simple program, but it takes a little work. Because there's a lot that you have to change. And it says it meant I would have to throw several lifelong conceptions out the window, which is hard for people. Because especially if you've been drinking and doing what you've been doing for such a long time. That was not going to be easy. But the moment I made up my mind to go through the process, which is the 12 steps, I had a curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved, as in fact, it proved to be quite an important. I'm sorry, was relieved as in fact it proved to be. So here he's saying that he had a feeling that once he decided to do the 12 steps and to take the program seriously, that he felt that his alcohol condition was going to be relieved. And I have the word relieved on the line because he's not talking about being cured. Alcoholism is never cured. It's always going to be in us, and we're always going to have that disease and that desire. We only really just put it at bay. We keep the beast caged up just for a little while. And he goes on to say, quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles will solve all of my problems. So he's saying he was also surprised to see that having God in his life would solve his problems. And I also have a little point here. The word drastic. Actually doing the work. It's basically what he means. We have to do the work. So when it says I have since been brought into a new way of living, infinitely more satisfying, and I hope more useful than the life I lived before. My own manner of life was by no means a bad one, but I will not exchange its best moments for the worst I have now. I would not go back, even if I could. So, in other words, he has a better life. So, in other words, he's been changed, right? A physical change, mental change, and a spiritual change. So some people call this like fourth dimension stuff. You're living on a different plane. So Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to 1,000 like him. We had felt only the first nip of the ringer. Most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they really commence to solve their problems. Many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of these men, staff members of a well-renowned hospital, recently made his statement to some of us. What you say about general hopelessness on the average alcoholic's flight is, in my opinion, correct. As to two of you men whose stories I've heard, there is no doubt in my mind that you are 100% hopeless apart from divine help. Had you offered yourself as patients at this hospital, I would have not taken you if I had been able to avoid it. People like you are too heartbreaking. Though we're not a religious person, I have profound respect for spiritual approach in such cases as yours, which is the 12 steps, right? For most cases, there's virtually no other solution. So here, doctor's opinion, they're talking about evidence. And I'm not sure which doctors he's talking about, but pretty much probably much talking about Dr. Silkworth at this time. And or down here says Dr. Percy Pollock, Bellevue Hospital. So that's another doctor. Dr. Pollock was and this is at Bellevue, what they were and who he was quoting. He said one more: the alcoholics at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink, except in a few rare cases. Neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. The defense must come from a higher power. So again, I was talking about defense before, and here he's saying that our defense has to be higher power, and I'll add the 12 steps, and the fellowship, the whole AA program, right? We all have to do it. We all have to do it together, right? And When the crazy thinking, the squirrels start running in our heads, the only defense that we have is the program, and that'll keep us sober. So, so again, this is Tony, alcoholic. So this concludes step one, and I'm glad you kind of stood with me, and I'll keep trying to add more to it. Thank you. Tony out.